Hello there, and welcome back to The Closet Historian and back to my series, Side Hustlin', where I show you a little bit more about the behind the scenes, whether that's more personal or actually behind the scenes of set making, prop making these videos, my writing process even sometimes, though it's been a few years, but kind of a more behind the curtain look at my work in general and the process behind it. And today I wanted to show how I made the set for my video last Thursday called Le Baton Rouge. This is of course named after a shop in the New Orleans Square area of Disneyland Park in Disneyland, California. I did grow up in Southern California in San Diego, and so driving up to Disneyland was like a rare treat that I always looked forward to, so I do have a certain nostalgia for Disneyland, and New Orleans Square was always my favorite part of Disneyland because you got your Pirates ride, excellent. Got the Haunted Mansion, excellent. Throw in a beignet, and it really is the best part of the park for me. There is, of course, now an entire Star Wars themed area of the park, but I have not been back since that opened, so that could become my new favorite, but I'll have to wait and see. But yes, there was a shop in New Orleans Square called Le Baton Rouge until recently. Of course, a play on Baton Rouge, Louisiana, because this area is supposed to be sort of a Louisiana themed area, and it was more of a kind of Hot Topic store, at least when I was younger, in the sense that it had all the Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise and kind of villains and darker gothic themed merchandise in this shop, so it was always a favorite of mine as a kid when I visited. So in the same way as my last Happy Haunt video that I did last year, I can put a card up to that lookbook from last year if you want even more Halloween spooky vibes. But just as a Happy Haunt was slightly based on the Haunted Mansion, I wanted to continue the same sort of area, because the Haunted Mansion truly is like the top Halloween destination for me. I wish I could be there today. I am filming this on Halloween itself, here talking to you. But this year I wanted to go ahead and do a proper transformation of my set. Last year I did kind of have to throw things together after I got back from that big road trip, but this year I had plenty of time to prepare and gather materials, so I'll show you the process of turning my usual backdrop set into this more exterior looking back of the graveyard sort of idea. So I put down new flooring, I have real bricks and fake plants and real plants, and I have faux finishing on the walls and real moss on the walls. So let's go ahead and dive back in time and I'll show you how I pulled this set together. All right, pals, we have mulch, we have tarps, we have flooring, we have a lamp, we have fake brick, and we have our set. So if I back up here, you can kind of get an idea where we are. And I'm going to move my lovely new table I bought at the Antique Mall this month. And although I did pick up some germs at the Antique Mall, so came with a bonus. And then my lovely pumpkin friends, my dead flower arrangement, move all this stuff offset, and it's time to transform this into an exterior, like, imagine if you've ever been to Disneyland and you're waiting in line for the Haunted Mansion, sort of the yard, or like the windy path before the Haunted Mansion, sort of is the vibe we're going for. We'll see how this goes. Alright, so here we are back on the real camera as opposed to my handheld iPhone camera situation so that I can remove everything that's already on set. This is my 12 by 7 by 4.5 set here in the basement where I film a lot of my reveals of my projects when they're finished, or lookbooks, etc. And I'm going to start today's set by putting down this tarp. I have this folded so it's 2 layers between the old faux wooden flooring and the new flooring I'm putting down. And this is some flooring that's meant for your gym or your garage. It's recycled rubber flooring, but I thought it gave a good asphalt or pavement sort of look. And hopefully you won't be able to tell that it's like this Lego kind of thing that snaps together very much from far away. Unfortunately, this material, because it is recycled material, which is a good thing, is not consistent in the color. So I had this nice darker gray kind of pavement color going on, and I was able to get 3 boxes of that, but the 4th box I picked up sadly is a slight color variation. I went back to the same store. I originally bought 2 boxes of this thinking that would cover everything. Turns out I don't really understand square foot, what that means and how to do the math for it, but I had to go get some more of this stuff, so instead of 2 boxes I actually needed 4 boxes, and this is quite expensive, so just this flooring alone will cost me about 2 to 3 times what this video will make in about a year, if the last Halloween lookbook is anything to go by. So these videos really are only possible because of Patreon, as I'm always saying and will say again in this video. But you can see that color variation here in the stripes on either side, sadly. Luckily, my faux wood chips situation is going to cover that in a moment here for this set, but for my next set where I intend to also use this flooring, I will have to figure out a solution. But I'm setting up some real bricks, these are 50 cents each at the hardware store, with some fake iron fencing here that luckily stands up pretty well on its own next to those bricks. So this is plastic iron fencing that I got in the garden area at the hardware store while I was picking up the bricks. And then these are, again, recycled rubber wood chips this time. So instead of having real wood chips, because I didn't want to have a very splintery situation down here, I have rubber wood chips. We'll see if they're any easier to pick up and clean up. We'll see how it goes. But I'm laying down a nice thick layer of those so I can stick some fake Halloween tombstones into that and use the wood chips kind of to hold those up. And I'm going to put a few of these on either side. The idea of putting them up against the brick wall is like if you ever go to very old graveyards, sometimes some of the gravestones have like fallen down or been removed over the years, and they usually line them up along the walls of the graveyard. So that's something I've seen done before, and so I had that kind of idea here that this maybe was a graveyard that has been turned partially into a park or something like that, so some of the gravestones are put up against the walls. And I wanted to start seeing what it was going to look like if I put some pumpkins on set as well, so I'm moving some pumpkins on to get an idea of how this was going. I, of course, ran out of bricks, as you can see on the right-hand side. I need a few more bricks, but I have to go back to the hardware store for that. I wanted to test what we had so far, how it was going. So I've got my spotlight on, some blue light on. I'm here in my Star Wars shirt and jeans, set building clothes, you know? And here's the next day where I'm in pajamas instead, even more casual. And you can see while I was at the Home Depot getting some more wood chips and more bricks, I picked up a very on-sale plant as well to put here on the right-hand side, because all the plants, of course, are dying. It's the end of the season, so they're all very cheap at the hardware store. And then I grabbed some leaves from outside. We needed to rake under our trees anyhow. So I grabbed a bunch of fall leaves that had fallen from our trees and put those in all the areas where they might accumulate via the wind. So I was kind of just throwing them around randomly, but also just making sure all the corners and nooks and crannies were full of leaves, like they would be from the wind blowing them around. And then I could put my pumpkins back over here. I was kind of doing things out of order because I should have painted this backdrop first. As you can see, I'm starting to do here. But due to like having certain materials and needing help on cutting this brick board from my dad, who controls the saw much better than I can, I had to like do some things out of order. But what I have here is a bottle, like a cleaner bottle that I emptied out and rinsed out. And now I have half water, half green paint in here, just a green acrylic craft paint. And I'm using this watered down paint to spray my tombstones, the brick, the wall, and I do just have some paper towels in my hand that I'm using to kind of blot that out, catch any drips or anything where it's too much. But I'm just spraying this paint mixture onto my wall and onto everything and the bricks and everything to give it a kind of greenish tinge, like there's been some moss growing, like this is a very humid and damp environment that this area is in. I, of course, live in Colorado where things are extremely dry and moss is sadly rare, but I assume in New Orleans or Baton Rouge, there's a bit more of a moisture situation going on, so things might have a bit of a moss-covered effect, or at least in my version, it does. So I'm just spraying some green on things to give it a bit of a green tinge to start with. I will have to amp this up a little bit later. And one way to get a moss effect is to just buy a bag of moss. So this is a bag of reindeer moss from the craft store that I'm going to shove a little piece of this in between each brick so it looks like it's growing out of the bricks. I have some of it stuffed underneath the pumpkins so it looks like the pumpkins have been there a while and moss is growing around them. Nooks and crannies, again, anywhere that it looks like too much moisture would collect and moss could grow freely, I'm sticking some moss in there because the best way to get a moss effect is to just use real moss. And I will start gluing this onto my bricks eventually as well, but before that I want to give them a little bit of a faux finish with some paint before I actually bring the real moss into play. So for now, I'm just sprinkling that around and then kind of putting some more broken leaves on top of that so it looks like, again, the leaves have been blowing around and the moss has been growing here a while. But for my bricks here in the back, you can see on the left-hand side, there are two boards that are pretty well lined up, and then on the right-hand side, the bricks didn't line up there, so I needed to cut that board down a little bit more, but I needed my handyman assistance for that part so I could work on other things while I was waiting for that to happen. So again, I have some olive and green paints on a palette here and a really old, like busted, sad brush. A chip brush would work well for this as well. And I have a little bit of water mixed into that to make like a bit of a green paint slurry. And I'm just brushing that on, like kind of dry brushing the bricks and then smushing the paint into the grout lines, trying to make this variegated and natural looking as I possibly can. Just giving everything a little bit more of a green wash down here, where I wanted the bricks to be mossiest down nearer the ground, quote unquote, as it were, where things would stay quite moist. But just smushing paint around, this does not have to be perfect, of course, because my camera is going to be quite far away from this area, and with the lighting, of course, on the effect, it takes on a different look than when I have full light. Luckily, the final video won't be in like 4K either, so I'm not too worried about it. I will show you how I glued the moss onto the wall later on. But for now, let me jump ahead and start drawing the cracks and broken bits onto the top half of my wall here. I'm imagining this is like a stucco covered portion of the wall, and so some of that stucco or rendering is falling away, and so I wanted to draw some cracks here on the wall. I'm going to focus these just kind of around my head and around the center of the set, because where I'll be standing, it will be in the middle of the set, so everything is kind of drawn or designed in a way to make the center of the set the focal point where I will, of course, be standing in my outfits in the end. But I'm looking at reference pictures of cracked walls on my phone here and drawing some larger cracks and like fallen away sections onto the wall with a Sharpie that I can go over with paint in a moment. This gray area is the normal part of my set. So my regular set now has these cracks painted on and is slightly green. That's okay because I have the next set I want to do involves a lot more pieces covering up my normal walls again anyhow, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm not too worried about having cracked plaster walls on my interior set either, so here I am painting these on in a rather permanent fashion. I could always go over with a little bit more gray paint and make them blend back in if I needed to. But it was time to start painting in my cracks, and what I did was I just filled in the shapes I'd drawn on with Sharpie with black paint to start. So this is just black acrylic craft paint, really cheap acrylic craft paint that I'm using to paint in the entire section where I want these cracks and sections to be. I'm going to do this in a multi-layer process to faux finish and trompe l'oeil, however it's said, this entire like wall to look chipped. So I'm painting in everything black first, and then I'll show you the next layer really starts to make it come to life already. I was very worried actually about painting these cracks. I was concerned because I'd never done anything like this before. I've never done or like been trained in any way in like scenic painting. I used to paint a lot when I was younger. I wanted to be a painter, but not wall-sized things or like murals or faux painting like this. So all the faux painting I do on set is just kind of flying by the seat of one's pants and hoping for the best. So I didn't exactly know how to go about this. I didn't really look it up. I just was looking at reference pictures to try and get an idea of how I could do this quickly. And again, it doesn't need to look photorealistic up close like this because the camera will be farther away. The lighting will be dim, so I'm doing my best here. We'll see how it goes. And where these two theater flats, I have my set is 3 theater flats wide. Look up theater flats if you'd like to build a set like this, or check out this Side Hustlin' video where I originally built this set with my dad a couple of years ago. But there is a seam in this wall. There's 2 seams in this wall, and it's covered with some filler and then many, many layers of paint at this point. But where that seam was, I decided to make it look like some of the cracks are really coming away from that vertical line. So that was kind of the idea there. But now I've mixed up some of the gray paint that this wall is, which is actually a house paint. It's called So Sublime from Glidden from Home Depot. So if you like this gray color, it's called So Sublime. But I'm using some of that mixed with some brown paint, a slightly darker shade, and just filling in these cracks that I just painted black all over again. Everything except for the very outer left edge of all the cracks, I'm leaving a line of black there, like a shadow. I'm going to have moonlight coming in from the left here, so like a blue light coming in from the left that would be throwing shadow on the left-hand side of the crack like that. So I'm trying to keep that in mind as I go around and fill all these back in. And again, I think it already looks like a layer of render has peeled off, so I was pleasantly surprised even just after this step about what was going on, and we still have 2 more steps to go. So next I mixed a little bit of black paint into that gray I was using to create a more shadowy color, and then I'm going to dry brush in some like crackety stones in between in the larger areas where the render has fallen away. And then I'm going to just use this as a blending shadow color between the black and the gray that I had put on here. So that's what I'm doing here. And like as the paint wears off my brush is how I'm kind of dry brushing the stone in between. So this looks like some sort of plaster that has chipped away from a stone wall. That was kind of the idea that was going on here. Again, I'm new to this sort of thing. I wish I had taken scenic painting. I think I would really enjoy it, actually. Fallback career number 73. I would love to do set painting in theater and stuff like that, which is basically what this is, especially because I, again, have the camera far away, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to give the illusion we're after. So this is the last step on this. Well, for now, I'm going to use a little bit of green later to add some more mossy effects, but for now, I'm just going to highlight on the right-hand side of all the cracks. On the left-hand side, I left it black. Here, I'm highlighting with a lighter gray all of the right-hand sides of things, so it looks like, again, the light is coming down from the left-hand side onto these cracks, and I'm just using my finger and a little bit of paint smudged on that to really highlight the cobblestones underneath. But this is the part where it really makes it come alive, which is quite fun. So really it's just, black and white, and then whatever mid color you're using, you can mix different shades of that to get this sort of effect. And I was thinking, let's see how this looks with lighting. I stop a lot while I'm building a set like this and see how the lighting is looking, especially because the lighting, the top-down like pot lighting, like recessed lighting down here in this basement is not the best for getting an idea what the set actually is going to look like with my lights on it. So I have my studio photography lights turned on to get an idea of what this is looking like. And I decided, since I had so much green going on in the lower half of the set, that I wanted to bring some more green up into the top. So I've actually got, again, some watered down green craft paint, and I'm just going to, again, dry brush this on and kind of highlight, again, where water would have been dripping down on this render, where water would have collected and moss would have grown. So I wanted to exaggerate that a lot more, especially because, again, the camera is far away, the lighting is weird. I can really make it a quite bold look and then tone it back if needed. So I just have a sponge, a sea sponge with some of the gray So Sublime color, the main color of the wall, here watered down to stamp over where I've gone too hard with the green. I probably could have left it as is, honestly, with the amount of lighting I had going on, but I just toned it down. Back down a little bit more here, so it wasn't too saturated compared to everything else, and I started wiping some more green onto my bricks as well. But once I had that right-hand side brick board cut so that at least the bricks lined up for the most part, I started gluing on some more moss to my wall. So again, roughly painted some of the bricks green and in between the grout lines kind of green. And then I'm just taking tacky glue, which is like a thick white school glue, PVA glue. You could use wood glue as well, would work quite well. I'm just going to put that on the grout lines and then take little tiny pieces of my real moss, which is called reindeer moss. I assume reindeer must eat it somewhere, perhaps. And I'm gluing that into the cracks so it looks like moss is growing out of the cracks in the brick. This was, again, just based off of reference images I was looking at of mossy brick. I thought this would be a fun idea. This stuff, I don't know if it's colored green extra by the company that makes it or packages it, or grows it, I guess. But it does stain your fingers quite green. It will stain your fingernails green. So maybe use gloves if you do this. I did not, and I ended up having to paint my nails for the lookbook because my nails were stained quite green from doing this. And my fingertips, even though I washed my hands quite a lot, everything was stained a bit green from touching this moss. So I don't know if it's extra color on this moss or if that's just how this moss is. I don't encounter moss much myself in my actual life because A, that's usually outside, and B, again, here in the western United States, it's more of a deserty situation until you get to the Pacific Northwest. I was a little bit worried at this point because the bottom third of the set got a lot of visual detail going on. We have the leaves, we have the different colors going on with the pumpkins and the like layered different items from the foreground to the background. And I know I really needed to bring more detail up into the top half of the set. So what I have here are lengths of fake ivy. I bought 2 packages of this fake ivy, which was enough for my 12 foot wide section here. I did spray paint these a little bit with some gray spray paint just to tone them down a tad because they were, you know, all very consistent color of green and I wanted some variation in these. So I used a little bit of gray spray paint and rusty kind of spray paint that I had laying around just to give these a little bit of a dusting. I tried to keep the ends of the strands a little bit rustier and then the rest of it kind of green with a dash of gray. But again, I hung these with care concerning having the center portion where I was going to stand as the clear area and then having it drip down on the sides. Again, just trying to make the focal point the center of the set where I was going to stand. And you can see I have installed my outdoor lamp. I just bought the cheapest outdoor lamp they had at the hardware store because I was going to make one out of cardboard and like plexi and stuff. But then I realized the time savings and just buying a real lamp, I was going to go in on that. So I ended up buying the cheapest outdoor lamp and I put a fake candle in here. It is not wired, of course, because electrical is something I haven't learned yet, but we'll get there. And then it was time to start playing with the lighting. So I have, again, the fake candles going on and all of the pumpkins and around set here. I'm setting the different colors and intensity that I want for all of that, plus all of my different studio lighting that I have on down here. I have green light coming in from the right, and then I have with a softbox and with a couple of outdoor floodlights. Then I have a bar LED light with my soft aqua moonlight coming in from the left. And then I have a more royal or purpley blue colored softbox on the right hand side up closer to the camera. Then behind the camera I have my ring light, so I want white light to fill in. I have that. And then I had an additional softbox that I borrowed from my brother with white light for the end part of the lookbook where I wanted to have a different lighting scheme where things were a bit brighter so you could really see the details of what I was wearing better. But I actually didn't get to play with and finalize the lighting until the day of the shoot, so I was kind of doing a hair and makeup test on set at the same time, being able to test the lighting with holding the clothes far away and up close to see what it was doing to the colors in the clothes and my hair and makeup. So I was really cutting it close to the wire, doing the lighting schemes, which took about an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe to decide on the lighting the day of the shoot. Last time I did this, I accidentally covered the microphone with my hand, and it made the sound extra awful. So here's hoping I'm doing a little bit better this time. And here I am in front of set in the last white ghostly gown with the ring light off, so I really do have my 2-color lighting here. We went with green and blue today. But I just wanted to show you what the lighting setup looked like in the end. I think it's quite fun. But, you know, behind softbox, ring light, green light in a softbox, and over here we have a blue light. I have my fancy light, like stage light, doing a spotlight through this tree to get like a mottled spotlight. And then I have my bar of blue light over here, which is a different color blue, because 2 different colors of blue are better than 1. And, you know, everything... Ugh. How can I frame this shot so I'm only on set? No, I can't. Wow, I have to get real close to make that happen, sadly. We have our tarp, we have our fake pavement, we have bricks, we have fake earth, lots of real leaves, fake tombstones, our pumpkins, lots of fake ivy. And this is what the Halloween set looks like this year. I hope my entire garden looks like this next year, but we'll see. Now, I mean, how am I going to clean all this up? It's an excellent question. I'm going to leave it here for a while because why not? It's fun. It's a fun backdrop. And I actually had a suggestion that I should just leave this up, take the pumpkins away maybe, and dust it in fake snow so that it looks like it has snowed and it's winter in the graveyard. And I kind of love that idea. So I might try and make that happen for a couple of videos here in November, but then I will need to clean all this up because I have a different set entirely. The only thing that will be staying from this will be the faux pavement flooring for my next idea. It will be entirely transformed once again into a very different vibe, but I am excited about that video as well, and you'll see what I mean later on in the year. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons who make projects like this possible. This was a very expensive video to make, and it's never going to make that money back, as I've said. This video in particular, at least, will not, but I consider it an investment in my channel, in my branding, as it were, in some ways. That's like the most annoying and like businessy way of putting it. Really, I just love pulling together this kind of a thing. Like, I love making sets and doing the lighting and really designing the whole thing to be captured in camera as much as I possibly can. I've said before, I quite like trying to figure out how to do things practically, how to capture it all in camera, if possible. And so I really enjoy the creative process of putting together an image, like all the way from the ground up, between my outfit, my makeup, choosing like everything about it other than myself. But I'm the only model I have to work with, so and I work for free, kind of. But yes, a video like this, although it allows me to really stretch my creative muscles, and that's what I enjoy most about them, doing these lookbooks in general, it's also never something that does wildly well on the channel, and so I've come to accept that over the years. But I think that the people who watch and like these videos, those are like my people on like a different kind of level almost. It's not just about sewing, it's about like appreciation of a certain kind of aesthetics, and I don't know, it's like a little bit silly. I'm never taking these things too seriously, but they're my versions of doing a fashion show. I went to school for fashion design, and this is as close to as I get to putting on a fashion show as I would have perhaps dreamed of doing when I was younger and wanted to be a fashion designer instead. But I guess because this is a side hustling video, I should update you on other things, including YouTube itself, because I am quite close now, or getting quite close to 100,000 subscribers, which was my goal for the year, and I think it might happen. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and help me out. It seems highly unlikely that you'd be watching a side hustling video, which are my more vlog style and casual, not really, I don't know, exciting, informative videos anyhow, that you'd be watching this and if you weren't subscribed. But just in case, go ahead and hit that bell or something. I am excited to see if it makes any difference more than anything, just because my videos, I've had a couple that have done quite well, but it's very, not like a viral kind of a thing where it happens overnight. It's always been like an older video just steadily has grown mostly from SEO, if anything, like people Googling how to make a 20s dress. My 1920s 1-hour dress video has quite a few views now, but it wasn't like a viral video. I didn't get those within a week. It took several years. And also that's my worst video, in my opinion, because I'm a rambling mess, even more than usual in that video. And it is so long that of all the videos for YouTube to try and introduce my channel to people with, I would not have chosen that one. But oh well, the algorithm does what it wants. But I am excited to see if the algorithm pushes a larger channel or like a verified checked channel more than a non one. So I'm excited to see just from a research perspective if it makes any difference at all. I do wonder, because my Patreon is the reason that I can do this as a job. The income that I make from YouTube itself, I could not live off of, not even close to live off of. It wouldn't be half as much as I need. It's 1/5 of my total income, basically, is what I make through YouTube itself. And I am interested to see if the channel, what size your channel has to be to actually earn income enough from YouTube itself. I could not keep doing this without Patreon, and I wonder how people do it without Patreon. I assume it's because they work with sponsors, and that's just something that I'm not interested in. I have, of course, I've mentioned before, I've had management teams or companies reach out to me that want to work with me, and I'm just not interested in selling most things, or I don't know, if you need a website, you'll figure out how to build one. If you want to learn a skill, I recommend YouTube. So I'm just not the best shill. And I know that about myself. It's not something I want to have to do. The only reason I can turn down sponsorship opportunities is because A, I am in this privileged position of still living at home and not actually paying rent yet. I'm saving for a house, but I actually don't have to pay rent month to month. And that's the only reason I've been able to build my career here on YouTube at all in general. As I've mentioned on this series before, go back several years and watch me on this series talk about that more. But also because of Patreon. But I'll have to think about what changes I need to make to my work-life balance over the next year, over this next couple of months, and try and figure out a new plan for next year, because what I tried this year was semi-successful at the beginning of the year and then really fell apart on me. No surprise there. Fell back into some old patterns that are not new for me, but I need to have a better plan moving forward. As usual, I need to try an even more radical strategy, I feel. So we'll see if I can come up with a new creative solution for that one. Thank you, as always, for watching today, and I'll be back here with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, and crafting real soon. So I'll see you then. Bye. With special thanks to my current and former conservator level patrons, Alice, Amy, Anna, Audra, Beatrice, Brianne, Che, Karina, Denise, Ellen, Eloquent Silence, Fern, Jay Lucky, Carol, Kelly, Lacey, Lainey, Lilith, Linda, Lynn Hamilton, Lynn Olson, Margaret, Myrna, Michaela, Nancy, Natalie, Rachel, Rachamus, Renee, Rhonda, Samantha, Swingularity, Thea, Tom, Tracy, and Zuzana. And thank you to all of my patrons for your support, and to viewers like you.